Well. Thomas J. Brady has finally called it quits. And I actually believe him this time. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some coaching hires that have taken place since the last time we've spoken. Two big dominoes have fallen in the coaching carousel game, if you will. So we'll talk about that. And what's left for the only, two teams left now who haven't hired their coach? Arizona and Indianapolis, right? So, did Arizona hire a coach yet? I don't think they did. Anyway, you're locked into the 314th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 314th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. A lot to get to today. It's interesting that this morning Tom Brady decided to hang it up. Did it kind of inauspiciously, and he cited why, and I can appreciate that about Tom Brady, sort of being self-deprecating, like, hey, I used up my, Crimea River retirement party, big shebang thing last year, so I'm not going to do that whole song and dance this year. Just going to let y'all know I'm done. I gave all I could give. I got nothing left in the tank. I'm ready to wrap it up and move on to the next chapter of my life, essentially. So I can respect Thomas for the way he went out. And last time, it seemed as if there was always this weird feeling he would be back. And because of that, I never really gave him retiring probably its just due. I remember very vividly last year when he retired on the podcast. I literally did a segment at the end of the show. It was literally a garbage time reference to Tom Brady. Might have spent 5 minutes on it and kept it pushing because I didn't think he was really retired. So I didn't give it the proper just due. This is different. I think this is the finale. This is it. We've seen Tom Brady for the last time competitively on an NFL field, and I think it requires reflection, the legacy of Tom Brady. So I want to start the show off with that. So that's what we'll do. We'll start off this show with a gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, Tom Brady calls it quits at the age of 45 years old. He had always said he wanted to play until he was 45. Mission accomplished. Tom Brady will go down as the most decorated quarterback in NFL history. I don't think anyone will ever surpass him, even though Patrick Mahomes is on a very torrid pace to start, especially if he can somehow find a way to win this Super Bowl. That'll be 2 Super Bowl rings in his first 5 years and 3 trips in 5 years as a starter, 6 seasons total for him, but 5 as a starter. If he can manage to do that, because I was talking to my sister the other day, and she was like, we just got rid of Brady's ass, and here comes Mahomes and the Chiefs. I'm sick of this shit already. I don't want to go through this again where somebody's dominating and, females are always, they want everyone to get a turn, right? Like, want somebody else to have a chance. That's human nature, though. It's just not females that feel that way. I said the Chiefs are more like the San Antonio Spurs for me. Like, they're hard to not like. Whereas Brady and the Patriots, they were an easy mark. They made it easy for you to dislike them. They didn't care, though. That was the beauty of Belichick and Brady. And I remember a podcast once upon a time ago where I talked about you'll never see a bad guy like the one that they put forth when they came together and created the Patriot way. That the Patriot way doesn't exist anymore. And Belichick can try to push that narrative, but people aren't willing to go to New England anymore because it's New England. It was Tom Brady was a huge part of that. They're not winning at the same clip they were once before. And Belichick's all kinds of baffled right now. He didn't know what the hell he was doing offensively last year. He's cleaned that up a bit by hiring Bill O'Brien, but I remember very vividly saying, say goodnight to the bad guy, because you'll never see one quite like Brady and Belichick, the B&B winning factory, as I used to call it. Brady went on to Tampa Bay and proved, I don't need Bill Belichick. I can win on my own. Sort of like Kobe winning without Shaq. I mean, both of them ultimately won. Shaq won a ring with Dwayne Wade. Kobe won one with Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom and company. And they both were able to prove they could coexist without one another. I don't know if Belichick is capable of winning another Super Bowl. I think he's going to try like hell to prove that it wasn't just Tom Brady. I can do this without him. Good luck. You're going to need it. Because we're talking about the GOAT, the greatest of all time in Tom Brady. I was looking at all these statistics that people were putting forth today as he announced his retirement this morning on socials. And it was amazing looking at his career from the prism of breaking it in half, right? 2001 to 2011. Or I think it was 2000 to 2011. Brady had, and the numbers were almost identical, which means as time progressed, as he got older, he didn't get any worse. In certain categories and statistics, he actually got better, which is asinine. It did help that he handpicked his next team and they did everything that they could do to accommodate him. They were really talented before he got there. They just needed a quarterback, but then they also went and, refurbished the offensive line. They, went out and got Gronk and Antonio Brown, and they did some things to really appease Brady to make him as comfortable as he could possibly be. And the result was a Super Bowl in 2020 or 2021, actually. 2021. No, 2020. The Chiefs won it in 19. And then Brady won it in Tampa in 2020, and the Rams won it in 2021, and then we'll crown one for 2022 this year. So, 2020. That said, it was amazing looking at the statistics. I mean, we'll never see anybody. I don't think Mahomes will even rival what Brady has put forth. Brady had 7 Super Bowl championships. Think about that for a second. 7. Everyone was talking about this on socials, but that's more than every single NFL franchise in the league, all 32. No one organization has 7 Super Bowl rings. That's ridiculous to think about it in that light. They showed championship game appearances. You don't think about these things until it's over, and then you start looking back. Brady had 14 championship game appearances. Let that shit sink in. As a fan of a team that hasn't made a championship appearance since I was 6, I haven't seen one since I was 6. Okay? 3 decades ago. He's been to 14. I've seen 1. Okay? Let that sink in. And He went to 14 in half the time that I've been waiting for my team to go to one more, to go to one. I've been waiting 3 decades. He's been to 14 championship games in the last 20 years. I mean, what are we talking about here? Are you kidding me? 7 in the first half of his career from 2000 to 2011, and 7 more from 2012 to 2022. I mean, who's doing that? Obviously, he won half of the Super Bowls, or not half. He won, how many Super Bowls did he actually lose? He's only lost 2 Super Bowls, and both were to the Giants, if I'm not mistaken. So he went, what, 9 times? Let's see. He lost to the Eagles. I left out. I think he lost 4 times in the Super Bowl. Lost to the Giants twice. Lost to the Eagles. That might be it, though. He beat the Rams. He beat the Falcons. He beat I think only teams to beat him were the NFC East teams. Giants twice, Eagles once. So he went to 10 Super Bowls, it sounds like, if my math is correct. And he won 7 of them. Wow. Okay. That's crazy. He owns just about every statistical passing record known to mankind. I wonder if we'll ever see anyone play until they're 45 again at the quarterback position. I mean, I know the rules have relaxed a bit on how you can attack quarterbacks, where you can and can't touch them, hit them, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And, the beauty of Tom Brady's career is he is one of the few quarterbacks that played in different eras of football. When he first came into the league, quarterbacks were getting their heads taken off. Guys like Troy Aikman and Steve Young were forced into early retirements because they got their heads taken off. It was a different game when he came into the league in 2000. Now, and he progressed into, and it was his Patriots teams, coincidentally enough, that forced the NFL to bring back the 5-yard rule that took away some of the aggressiveness of the defenses, because they were so aggressive with those Colts teams in the early 2000s, really beating them up and harassing them down the field and winning those championship games. So the league kind of reconfigured the rules a bit. And in doing that, and he was a huge part of not being able to hit the quarterback. It started with Carson Palmer and Kimo Von Oelhoffen falling into his leg in that playoff game, tearing his ACL. But it really was Brady getting his ACL snatched from him in 2006 that really prompted them to take a look at how quarterbacks were being hit. And so he kind of saw his career progress through the changes that were being made. And I think it really helped with longevity for him. But think about how many teams and games he was a part of that impacted the way the NFL conducted business. There's the tuck rule game that changed an entire rule there, and they put emphasis on it. So that's a thing. I just talked about the 5-yard rule. That was all New England Patriots based. Him having his leg rolled up into and getting hurt for an entire season and losing his ACL prompted them to say, hey, you can't hit quarterbacks low anymore. Right? So you take a look at all of that stuff that he had a hand in or was a part of in some way, shape, or form. And then you just look at his impact on the field. I remember doing this when he pseudo-retired the last time. And I talked about the thing that Tom Brady, and it's funny because when you have conversations with people, They constantly talk about how quarterback is such a dependent position, and even the elite quarterbacks don't elevate the level of play of people around them. They need talent around them to help them get to where they ultimately want to go. And that's true. You look at most of the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, you look at most of the really good teams right now in the NFL, and wherever you find an elite quarterback, you're going to find either an elite receiver or an elite tight end, or both. For Brady, he never had truly an elite receiver that was his tag team partner. I mean, when we look back at his career, Gronk will be the guy that'll be synonymous. Gronk's going into the Hall of Fame, first ballot when he's eligible, and that'll be the guy that'll be synonymous with Tom Brady. But there won't be a receiver that you'll be able to connect to him, which is rare when you're talking about elite quarterback play. There's usually a receiver that you can tie in with that quarterback. I think Drew Brees is another guy that never truly had an elite pass catcher. Really, I don't know if we could even assign Drew Brees an elite tight end. He had Jimmy Graham in an elite period of time, but Jimmy Graham, I don't think, will ultimately be a Hall of Fame tight end. So I think, hence, Drew Brees might not have played with another Hall of Fame player. When you think about Marquise Colston, you think about Michael Thomas, and those were some of the bigger names of guys he was throwing the football to at the receiver position. And then Jimmy Graham at the tight end position. Drew Brees deserves a ton of credit, Sean Payton, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at his contemporaries, whether it's Ben Roethlisberger, you go Hines Ward immediately, you go Antonio Brown. I mean, he had guys his entire career that he could rely on. You look at Phillip Rivers. He's another one that's really interesting. But, there was Vincent Jackson. But obviously, Antonio Gates is the one that I think you point to with Phillip Rivers and say he had Gates, another Hall of Fame player, right? Peyton Manning, obviously, he had two Hall of Famers in Reginald Wayne and Marvin Harrison. So clearly we know what the direct correlation is for him. You look at the contemporaries now, Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers always had a guy. I want to say Greg Jennings was his first guy, but really Devontae Adams is the one that we'll look back on and say, hey, that was the guy that Aaron Rodgers probably had, the best chemistry with, that's ultimately going to probably end up in the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done, right? You look at Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill could go on to play 6 more years in Miami, or 4 more years in Miami, 3 more years somewhere else, and we'll still talk about what he did in Kansas City. But obviously, Travis Kelce is a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Brady never had that at receiver. You know what I'm saying? He made guys good. He made running backs good. I call them the Brady backs. He started that, and it started with Kevin Falk, and then it just matriculated, down the list. Shane Vereen and Danny Woodhead and James White. I mean, we can go on and on. There's so many Brady backs that came through the annals of New England, caught the football exceptionally well out of the backfield, got those guys paid. They never got paid in New England. You always had to go get your money elsewhere. Same thing with the receivers. David Givens. Troy Brown was a guy that stuck around, and he was versatile, and Belichick loved him for that. But they never had a guy necessarily. Now, there was Julian Edelman, and you can make a case for Julian Edelman being a Hall of Fame receiver. And I think people will try to make that case, and we'll see if he ultimately gets in. His playoff numbers are ridiculous, but I don't know if that's enough to get him in or not. But they're letting anybody in the Hall of Fame these days, so we'll see. Danny Amendola was another really good receiver for him. Wes Welker, another really good receiver that he played with. But none of these guys I view as Hall of Fame receivers. So it's a testament to what Brady was able to do. The Patriots were horrible at drafting receivers. Bethel Johnson, Chad Jackson, the list goes on and on and on. N'Keal Harry, they've been awful at developing their own for the most part. But whatever they gave Brady, for the most part, he was able to take and make it good enough. Yep, there was that, stretch there with Randy Moss, 2007. Who could forget? One of the greatest NFL regular seasons we've ever seen. But that was a small, brief period of time when it comes to the conversation surrounding Tom Brady. He might be the best quarterback I've ever seen at elevating those around him. Deion Branch was never Deion Branch anywhere else. He went to Seattle, got a big contract. What did he do? David Givens got a big contract, went to Tennessee. What did he do? Nothing. The answer is nothing. These guys didn't exist without Tom Brady. So it's one of those situations where you look at his career, you look at what he was able to accomplish, you look at all the milestones he hit, you look at the consistency. I think the thing that really does it for me is the consistency at which Tom Brady was successful. There was never a lull. There was this one little period in there. Excuse me. I think they went to the Super Bowl in 2004 against the Eagles after winning 3 out of 4. And I think there was a stretch there from 04 to 07 where they didn't make the Super Bowl. All right. So there was a little bit of stretch. Remember, he had the ACL injury in that period as well. Keep that in mind. And then there was another stretch from, I want to say 11. This was the longest stretch of his career. 11 when they lost to the Giants the second time until I want to say 16 when they lost to the Eagles. That was another stretch of time where they didn't make it to the Super Bowl. Other teams infiltrated, got in, and there was a little, but they were always around. Brady, I don't know if Brady ever had a season in which he started start to finish and the Patriots didn't make the playoffs. Just flat out weren't good enough. I don't even know if that season ever existed for him. Excuse me. Every year, the Patriots were double-digit winners with Tom Brady under center. Every year, they were getting into the playoffs, and they were hosting. I don't know if Tom Brady ever played a road wild card game in New England. He did it in Tampa Bay, playing against Washington when they went to the Super Bowl in 2020. I don't think in his entire career in New England, he played a road wild card game, which means they won their division pretty much every single year. That speaks to the ineptitude of that division, but it also speaks to the dominance that they had over the rest of the AFC East. I mean, it's amazing to think that, hey, I'm playing in the playoffs and I'm playing at home for much of my playoff career. Because think about it. Most of those years where they did play, they didn't even play in wild card weekend a ton. First of all, they were usually because they, coming up Brady in the era that he came up in, there were 2 first-round buys for much of his career. So they usually grabbed one of those first-round buys. But when they didn't, they were at home. The consistency at which he was dominant. There was never really, no matter what the Patriots provided for him, what guy they didn't want to pay, what draft bust they brought in at receiver, no matter what the circumstances were, Brady always found a way to get it done. And he could beat you in so many different ways. He could beat you with the short pass game. I thought he was the most surgical quarterback I've ever seen, just nickel and diming your ass. He could give it to you however you wanted it. You want this 15 play, 79-yard drive that features me throwing it 11 times. I can do that to you. I can also see that you're coming with a blitz. We got the numbers on the right side. Blitz is coming from the left. I'm changing it to a run to the right, away from the blitz, and I can beat you psychologically with my mind, and we can run this bitch 41 times, and I can only throw it 20 times tonight. However you need to get it, I can give it to you. You giving me one-on-one on the outside with a receiver I think can win, I can throw it 50, 60 yards down the field, drop it in the bucket. However you want to get it. That year with Moss, I remember we questioned Brady's arm strength at times. That year with Moss, he was just letting that shit rip. And Randy was just running under it. And any questions you may have had about Brady's ability to throw it vertically, we never questioned the zip on the football underneath. Brady would put that shit wherever, surgically. Boom, 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 boom. Pinpoint accuracy. But we, weren't quite sure because he never really had a ton of dynamic receivers that could run. He had Bethel Johnson early in his career, but they really didn't have a lot of dynamic receivers that could run and stretch the field vertically throughout his career in New England. A lot of underneath guys, a lot of guys that worked the intermediate, and Brady was perfectly fine with that. Give him a tight end or two, and he was fine. Give him a receiving back, and he was good. But he could do it in any way he needed to do it. And that's another thing that I admired about him. And we say this about Burrow. We say it about Mahomes. We say it about a lot of these quarterbacks now, but this was really true of Brady. If the game was close and he had a shot, you already knew what was going to happen. You already knew. Like, it became a thing where, oh, shit, you got Brady, huh? You're up 2 with 47 seconds left. Brady's getting up. You're about to lose by 1. Damn. Up 4 with a minute and 1 second left. Brady's got no timeouts. Damn. You about to lose by 3. Thought you won, huh? Maybe next time. Up 6, which you never would want to find yourself in a position like that. I mean, back in the old days, people weren't perceptive enough to go for 2 to make it a 7-point lead. So you'd be up 6 and Brady would break your heart and you'd lose by 1. You always thought he was going to. I don't feel that way about anybody other than Mahomes right now, where if they get a shot with the ball, you about to get done up. Burrow is really good and he's close to getting that same type of clout, but he's not there yet. He had the ball multiple times in the AFC Championship game this past weekend and he didn't get it done. Brady is that guy. I don't think we'll ever see another Tom Brady in the NFL. I think the closest thing we'll get to him is Mahomes. And Mahomes has so far to go. That's the crazy part, is Mahomes has been so good. He's done things we've never seen this early in an NFL career. But we don't know if he's going to have the longevity that Tom Brady had. We don't know if he's going to play 20 plus years like Tom Brady did. We'll see. But all Brady had in his career, essentially, the mainstay for him was Gronk. And remember, Gronk didn't come along until like 2010, 2011. It's not like Gronk was there the first 10, 11 years of his career. He didn't have Gronk with him. Like, this isn't like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, or Steve Young and Jerry Rice, where you've had this guy your entire career, or Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin, or Jim Kelly and Andre Reed. This isn't one of those relationships, Brett Favre and Sterling Sharp. This isn't one of those types of situations where you come in right out of the gate and you got a guy you can ride with. Excuse me. Joe Burrow, right out of the gate, pretty much has Jamar Chase. He had to go 1 year without having a receiver, and then he gets Jamar Chase. Patrick Mahomes essentially maybe went a year. I think, matter of fact, by the time he got the starting job, Tyreek Hill was already there and already established. So he came right out of the gates with Hill and Kelsey, right? Brady didn't have that. There wasn't any Gronk. There wasn't any Randy Moss. There were a bunch of ragtag guys that he got it done with. It was David Givens and Deion Branch and Christian Faurier, and these are the guys he was throwing the football to. And he made it work. And he did that for the first 10, 11 years of his career before Gronk came along and gave him a dominant force. I want to say Gronk might have been, I think I'm pushing his date out a little bit. I think Gronk might have been, because I feel like Gronk was a part of that 07 squad that was undefeated. I want to say, I'm going to put, let's look it up. Let's see where Gronk, I'm going to put Gronk in the 06 draft. That's what I'm going to do. Rob Gronkowski. I'm going to put him in the 06 draft. 2010, I was right. So he wasn't a part of that 07 squad. So I was right on. I felt like Gronk wasn't there, but they were so dominant at 07. I felt like he had to be, but he wasn't. I mean, again, that speaks to Brady's brilliance. Is he didn't have Gronk for the first half of his career. And he still was special. So you see a lot of these quarterbacks, they marry these guys up quickly with an elite pass catcher. Brady didn't have that luxury, and he still was phenomenal. And he played in a different era too. He played where you could actually touch the quarterback. You could hit the quarterback. It wasn't until the latter half of his career where, and I think that definitely helped him with longevity. But I used to say this about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady all the time. You need to appreciate the greatness that you're watching, because you may never see anything quite like that again. I think, again, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but Mahomes, I think, is the guy that may carry that torch. He may be able to keep that going where, hey, we got to do that. Down 3, I'm not even looking for the field goal. I'm looking for the jugular vein right now. Touchdown. Down 4, I'm definitely going to get the touchdown. Down 2, I'm going to get this field goal. You about to lose. Even with how great of a start Mahomes has had to his career, he still may pale in comparison to what Brady accomplished. And that's saying something, because what Mahomes has done in his first 5 years, we've never seen it in NFL history. That includes Tom Brady. The only thing that Brady has over him in the first 5 years is Super Bowl rings. Brady won 3 in his first 4 seasons, I believe. Let's see, 2000, 2002, 2003. Or 2001, excuse me, 2001, 2003, 2004. Ravens running in 2000, and the Bucks won it in 02. So 01, 03, 04. So the first 5 years of his career, Brady had already amassed 3 Super Bowls. Whereas Mahomes can only, technically speaking, this is his 6th year in the league, but 5th as a starter. He can only get to 2 if they win against the Eagles in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, this dude here, man, this Tom Brady guy, is pretty damn good. He was pretty damn good. And I'm actually glad to be able to say, I think I've watched the entire career, start to finish, of the greatest player in NFL history. I can say that. I feel like I can say that this is the only sport I can say that in, really. Because I can't say that about Michael Jordan. Some of you will say, hey, if you watch LeBron James, then you can say that. Touche. If that's who you have as your number one, he's not mine. And that's a debate, right? That's a debate that people can have until the cows come home. LeBron or Mike. I'm always going to be a Mike guy, no matter what. But LeBron is special, man. It's Mike, then LeBron, and then you can probably take about 3 steps before you get to Magic and, the rest of those guys that you have in your top 5 to 10. When it's all said and done, when LeBron hangs it up, he'll have Tom Brady-like numbers. It'll be ridiculous. That said, I think this is it for Tom Brady for good. And if it is, we were treated to the greatest quarterback arguably the greatest player in NFL history. And to that, I say thank you, Tom Brady. Didn't always love you, okay? And half the time I was probably rooting against you. But damn, was it fun to watch. Man, was it fun to watch. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the next segment of the show, and that is social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Y'all know what it is. Y'all go ahead, start lining up your comments. What I want to start the conversation off with, and first and foremost, I'm being rude. If you're new to the channel, first and foremost, welcome. Hopefully you like what you see and you subscribe for more great content. But how this works is you use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if we have time. But super chats are the way to jump to the front of the line. They are first come, first serve. And so, or they supersede comments. The comments where you use the hashtag are first come, first serve. But super chats jump you straight to the front of the line. I want to start the conversation off by talking about these head coaching hires, though. So let's see if let's see. Arizona Cardinals, I don't think have hired a head coach yet. And the Colts have not hired a head coach yet. Excuse me. Those are the two teams that remain. But we got two of the bigger jobs that were available filled. Denver Broncos, to me, was the most appealing job that was on the market. Now, the Russell Wilson thing was like an elephant in the room, but I still think Russ has got good football left in him. I don't think he just forgot how to play football because he was so bad last year. I really think that was a byproduct of Nathaniel Hackett. I truly do. Nathaniel Hackett is probably one of those guys that wants you to acquiesce to his scheme and doesn't fit. And to me, the worst coordinators are the ones that have a scheme and are rigid and aren't looking to adjust to the talent that they have, but rather, this is my scheme, run it, and it should work. No matter what the pieces look like and how they fit into your scheme, just run it. It should work. Those are the worst. And I think Nathaniel Hackett is one of those types of guys. That said, the Denver Broncos made a massive splash by trading for former Saints head coach Sean Payton. Now, I saw an interesting tweet. I don't know if I'll be able to track it down, but the Broncos have given up a lot of draft capital over the last 2 years, whether it's for the acquisition of Russell Wilson or now Sean Payton. And it's really interesting to see if it's going to pay off for them, because this is the exact opposite of what you want to do if you're trying to build a winner. It's by giving away what they've done, essentially. So they've been shaking and moving. I can't find it. I knew I was going to be able to find it, and I should have just liked it like I normally do, but I didn't. But they acquired Russell Wilson last year, and I think they gave up a 1 last year, a 1 this year, and like a 2 and a 4. And then they got some, they gave up Noah Fant and Shelby Harris. These are really good players. And they just got Russell Wilson in return, essentially. And they may have gotten like a late round draft choice or something like that. A third round pick, if I'm not mistaken. Third round pick. I think they used it in last year's draft, is what I saw. Now you're getting Sean Payton. And they gave up a 1 this year, and I think, let me see what the actual they gave a 1 this year, which they got from San Francisco. and a 2024 second round pick. So they gave up, they had 2 ones this year, I'm assuming. No, they probably had one. That probably was their only one because they gave up their one. I think they gave up their one to the Seattle Seahawks last year. The one last year and the one this year to Seattle. And they had a one from San Francisco. I don't know what they traded to San Francisco that would have necessitated a one, but they have San Francisco's one, or they had it. They give that up in a 2024 second round pick. And it's 2024 third round pick. So essentially a one this year, back into the first round, and you're 2 and 3 in next year's draft. That's a steep price to go get a coach, but we don't see coach trades very often. The last time I think we saw a coach trade was John Gruden, if I'm not mistaken, going from the Raiders to the Bucks, and they won a Super Bowl. Not too long thereafter, if not the next year. So if you're going to do that, it better reap the type of benefits and dividends that necessitate what you gave up. So they get Sean Payton. You know what's interesting, though, about that whole situation is that you come to find out that Sean Payton wasn't even number one on their radar. They wanted DeMeco Ryans. Like, I think it was Ian Rappaport who had the tweet that said the Broncos were trying feverishly to get DeMeco Ryans before he took the Texans job. I mean, they were trying everything in their power to get him to come back to Denver, re-interview one more time, and not let him leave the building. And they just couldn't make it happen. His head was set on going back home to Houston. And I told you guys that, a month ago? I said, DeMeco Ryans is going to Houston. I said, they've hired and fired 2 brothers back-to-back, one-and-done situations. They can't afford to not hire a brother here. They got to hire a brother and give him more than 1 year, or it's going to be a really bad look. But to add to that, DeMeco Ryans isn't a token candidate. He's not just a brother that you hire because you're trying to dispel a narrative or a notion that, you've been hiring brothers to take on these no-win situation jobs just to use them up till you got to a point where you were ready to hire your real coach, which is what they were doing the last 2 years. DeMeco Ryans is a legit candidate. So that earned that opportunity. But the Broncos wanted him. What is that? I mean, if you're Sean Payton, don't you feel some type of way about that? I mean, look, at the end of the day, if I'm Sean Payton, if that's one of the jobs I was really interested in, I don't care. But you probably do feel some type of way like, oh shit, y'all, I wasn't your first choice, huh? Okay. Anyway, Sean Payton is now going to be in Denver. I'm anxious to see what that looks like. Sean Payton's offense features a lot of short, quick passes underneath that set up, shots down the field, but more specifically, they throw in Payton's offense. And Payton, this is a misnomer about him. That he doesn't like to run. He wants to run the football. So Sean Payton wants to run the football, wants to throw it underneath. He wants to suck your defense up. And then he starts to work the intermediate stuff. And then if you get too nosy, he goes over the top. So it'll be interesting to see if Russell Wilson can fit into what Sean Payton does, or if Sean Payton kind of tweaks his system a bit to fit the skill set of Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson has never been a get it and get it out of his hands type of guy. He's never been ball in my hands, I'm going to go ahead and throw this slant like repetitively, slant out, stop route, that's not who he's been in his career. He's been a hold on to it, try to make something happen down the field, extend the play, which he probably isn't at that point of his career anymore. We saw that last year with Denver. Those wheels don't work as good as they once did. So I wonder if Sean Payton's going to be able to. I didn't think this was a great fit for him initially when the process started, which is why I thought it took so long. But he took the job, and now I want to see what ultimately becomes of that offense, because we know the defense is good. We know the defense is good in Denver. Can the offense, it doesn't even have to match them. They just got to be solid. League average, and they're a 10, 11 win team with the kind of defense. We talked about this already. The Broncos would have just scored 16 points in regulation last season. In their first 11 games, they would have won 9 of them. Some crazy number like that. Remember, they were winning games last season 11-10. They beat the 49ers on a Sunday night 11-10. They should have beaten Indianapolis in one of the worst Thursday night games we've ever seen. What was the score of that game? 6-6? What was it, 9-9 or something like that in overtime? I mean, it was the worst football game we'd seen on Thursday Night Football ever. It's terrible. And to think they had a chance to win it. We'll see what Peyton does. I'm intrigued by that hire and what it means for the Denver Broncos moving forward. But DeMeco Ryans going to Houston is a big deal because I'm excited for him to get the opportunity. As another brother getting an opportunity in the NFL. And I'm excited for him, but he's got a hell of a challenge in front of him. The beauty of it is he's going to be able to pick a quarterback at number 2. He should have had number 1. They really, hey, Lovey, golf clap. I'm going to give you credit for something that I don't think you were trying to do. But Lovie Smith left the Texans the nastiest FU on the way out. He left a steaming pile of poo on their doorstep, flaming, that they stepped on to try to put out, and they just stepped in a whole lot of nasty, right? They should have the number 1 overall pick. He should be able to pick whatever quarterback he desires at 1. He will not get that opportunity unless they do something asinine like trade up with the Bears, which would be the stupidest thing ever. If you're Houston, unless you are totally convinced that there's only one guy in this draft worth taking with the first 2 picks of the draft. If you meet with CJ Stroud and you meet with Bryce Young and Will Levis, and you're like, out of these 3 guys, only one of them is worthy of a top 2 pick. I don't believe in that guy. I don't believe in that guy. He's the only one I want. Unless that is the conclusion that you come to, you cannot trade up from 2 to 1 because of what it's going to cost. You're not in a position with your roster and how you're trying to build this. You're not in a position to be giving away draft capital. You should be collecting it, which you have been doing of late. So Lovey gave you the biggest FU on the way out the door, and I'm proud of him for that. But you're still in position to draft one of the 2 best quarterbacks, and I think there are 2 of them. And you're going to get one of them. And whether it's Young or Stroud, you should feel really fortunate that you're going to have a guy that you probably can grow with in Houston. But you've got a lot of work to do. Brandon Cooks wants out. You got no receivers really to speak of. Tight end position isn't all that great either. It's getting older as we speak. There is nothing really on the offensive side of the football outside the running back position and maybe 1 or 2 guys on the offensive line. You got a lot of work to do there. Defensively, you've started to put the pieces in place. You know, love what you did in the secondary, specifically in the draft last year by getting the safety out of Baylor, who I absolutely loved, and the corner out of LSU. But there's still a lot of work to be done on that side. You don't have one dominant pass rusher. Jerry Hughes is probably your best pass rusher, and he's like 83 years old. So you got work to do, man, and lots of it. But hopefully he'll be given 4 years at a bare minimum to try and turn that thing around, because it's a lot of work to be done. But he's at home where he's beloved, and he's going to have a quarterback, which gives you a fighting chance. And we'll see what happens. Quarterbacks, if they get it right, it expedites the process. you could suck this year. You get a young quarterback that's good, and you could go from, I think the Texans were a 2-win team last year, 2, maybe 3 games they won last year. And you could easily go to a 7-8 win team next year if you get the right guy in there. Similar to what Jacksonville did with Trevor Lawrence. First year they had Urban Meyer, they sucked ass. There was no way around that. But you see the leap they made from where they were and the number 1 overall pick to having competent coaching to making the playoffs and winning 9 games. You get the right guy in there, and there could be that monumental leap by year 2 for DeMeco Ryans. But boy, he's got his work cut out in front of him. But I'm excited to see for both of those teams in particular. I'm excited to see what those hires are able to do for them. Does it boost the morale in those situations? It was bad in Denver at the end of last season. It was bad. The morale was down. Same in Houston. Guys are trying to get out of there. It's bad. Now there's 2 jobs left, and the Cardinals job and the Colts job. And I'm telling you right now, neither one of those jobs are very appealing to me if I'm a coaching candidate. I think the Colts job is a bit more appealing than that of Arizona because you're more likely than not inheriting a very good defense. Jonathan Taylor didn't forget how to run the football. He didn't go from the leading rusher in the league to just falling off a cliff. He was banged up last year, and they just weren't a good team. And teams are keying in on stopping him because they didn't respect the Colts pass game. And so he's still really good. They still got pieces on that offensive line that should be able to turn it around after having a rough go of it last season. And so they got some weapons at receiver if they can, put it all together. I really like what Alec Pierce did last year. I was really impressed with him. They got some stuff. If you can find a quarterback, and that's the problem. I don't really trust their GM to do that. Chris Ballard has done a lot of good things in Indy. The one thing he hasn't been able to do, he's been a coward. I've called him a coward. He's run from the quarterback position, just trying to put Band-Aids on it with veterans. So now this year, I don't think he's going to be able to do that. He's going to have to take a quarterback. And if he doesn't, if they go after another veteran, I don't see them doing that. I think they're going to take a young guy and just see what happens. You get it right, Indy could be good. You don't, they're going to continue to stink. So I don't love that job. I don't hate it. I don't really think there's a bright future in Arizona right now. I saw the report that Kyler Murray is going to miss at a bare minimum the first half of next season. Think he won't be ready until you're talking 8, 9, 10 weeks into the season. That's not a job. And there's still a lot of questions about Kyler Murray. The jury is out on him right now. Like, we have no idea what this guy is. I told you, he's not a leader of men. As a matter of fact, he's divisive, if you ask me. And he's immature, he's childish, which is why they had to put all of those provisions into his contract at one point before taking them out. I don't think like Kyler Murray is the poster child for what teams are looking for out of a franchise quarterback. And he's coming off of major surgery with a body part that is very vital to his success. He's a mobile quarterback that has to be able to run around to be successful. So that's not, and DeAndre Hopkins may be traded. That's not a great situation right now. Their defense isn't really all that good. I don't love that job, honestly speaking. We'll see what happens. But the pool has definitely shrunk after Sean Payton and DeMeco Ryans have been snatched off the market. If you're a team like Indy and you plan on drafting a quarterback, a guy like Shane Steichen would be pretty high on my list, honestly speaking, because what he did with Jalen Hurts, if you can get a guy like Will Levis in there, or hell, even Anthony Richardson would probably be a better comp for Jalen Hurts. And you can put together an offense that highlights his skill set and puts teams in a bind defensively the way that he was able to construct an offense that really put teams at a stark disadvantage week in and week out with Jalen Hurts and all the weapons that they could put on the field. If you can do that in Indy with Jonathan Taylor, that offensive line that has some Philadelphia-like qualities to it, you probably need one more big time weapon out there at receiver. But if you could find a way to put together a semblance of what they did in Philadelphia and you get Shane Steichen in there, you have a shot. With the kind of defense that you've played, you got a shot. Arizona, that's probably going to have to be a job that you got to give to either a retread that's desperate to get back in the league, like a Jim Caldwell, or you got to get the young upstart that's basically willing to walk into a kamikaze mission and doesn't give a shit because he knows this is my only opportunity to get a job. I'm not going to get a job, with an organization that is looking to win, right away. This is an organization that's looking to, kind of rebuild this thing. They're not winning in 2023 with Kyler Murray missing the first half of the season. So they couldn't even win with DeAndre Hopkins missing the first 6 games of last season. What do you think is going to happen when their quarterback is out for the first half of the season? Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to sell. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. Jonathan Hankey starts us off. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Jonathan Hankey writes, hope my Colts get their head coach soon, Lou. I'm fine with either Raheem Morris, Brian Callahan, or Shane Steichen as our new head coach. I think Shane Steichen is the guy, but I love Raheem Morris. I love his energy, and I think he's ready for another opportunity. After having the opportunity that he had the first time and it not going well in Tampa, I think he's ready now. I think he's seasoned. I think he's done the work, and he's a better coach because of the experiences that he's had, whether it be as a coordinator in LA with the Rams or a positional coach around the league. I think he's a much better coach now than he was when he got the job in Tampa, what feels like an eternity ago. You got to be talking about every bit of 10 to 12 years ago. He'd be interesting. But I think Shane Steichen is the right man for that job in particular. We'll see what happens. Red Wings 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, hard to believe it's actually over. The era of the greatest football player ever has reached its conclusion. What a career it was. Say what you want about Brady. I'm no fan of his, but he is the GOAT. Facts. I was running from that for the longest of times. It was Peyton Manning for me for a very long time, just because of my disdain for Tom Brady and the Patriots and how they conducted themselves and the Patriot way and all of the things that went with the evil empire known as the B&B winning factory. So I would find ways to make it Peyton Manning. It was always Tom Brady. It was always Tom Brady. And similar to Kobe, who was an absolute douche for the first 2/3 of his career, as he got towards the end of his career, he became this likable figure, right? Where he kind of transformed from this evil villain that spared no one, that did whatever it took to win, which exactly is what Brady was. Brady would tell guys, I'm not giving you any pointers. Maybe when I'm done, but I'm not helping you out, which I don't have a problem with that. But it was easy not to like Kobe. It was easy not to like Tom Brady because they were such fierce competitors, right? They were assholes. But as Kobe saw the end of his career nearing, he became this endearing, lovable, affable guy that, put his arm around young players and was showing guys the ropes and just kind of enjoying life. And that was the same thing with Tom Brady. He still was cussing out offensive linemen and, this, that, but he was on social media and he was, always smiling and laughing. It was a different side of Tom Brady that maybe he wasn't allowed to be in New England because that wasn't the Patriot way. But he became a different dude at the end of his career. He started to enjoy it, I think, a little bit more. And he became more of a likable figure. So I think he became less of an ass and more people started to say, you know what, Tom Brady's not half bad. And I think the people that didn't want to give him credit started to acknowledge, okay, yeah, he's the GOAT. And like you said, whether you like it or not, whether you were a fan of his or you weren't, he's the best to ever do it. That's not even a debate. 1/6 Devil Doc. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, correction, Lou, Kobe had 2 chips without Shaq. I wasn't looking to name the amount of chips he won with or without Shaq. I was just saying he won a championship without him. Shaq won one without him. He won one without Shaq. Yeah, he won 2 without him. But I wasn't like saying definitively he had won one. I was just saying they were both able to show that they could go on and win without the other. I only use that example to highlight and illustrate that I don't think the same can be said for Brady and Belichick. Brady's already shown the ability to win without Belichick. I don't think Belichick will be able to prove that he can get it done without Brady. So, because there was this conversation when the divorce first happened, who was more important to the success of the B&B winning factory? Was it Brady or was it Belichick? And I think most people came to the conclusion that, look, this is a 50-50 split. This was a joint venture. You take one of those guys out of the equation and the success that they enjoyed just isn't there. Maybe Brady still wins. Maybe Belichick sneaks 1 or 2 Super Bowls, but they don't win 7 together, or 6 rather together. They don't make it to, 10 straight AFC championship games or whatever the ridiculous number was, 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever that crazy ass number was that they made it to. And they don't play in 9 Super Bowls together, winning 6 of them. So I think Brady has proven, though, a lot of the success in New England. Belichick did a great job of setting the standard, making guys understand this is what it means to be a Patriot. When you come in here, this is what you have to do. You have to be mentally sharp at all times. We don't settle for anything less than excellence at the highest levels. He would walk around, asking guys questions about the upcoming opponent. And if you didn't know it, he would embarrass you. Like, guys had to be on their toes. It was not a great environment to be in, but winning is great. So guys put up with it. But you know what made going to New England palatable was Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a great guy. We just got to know him. Tom Brady is a winner. You knew that I can put up with Belichick's shit because I'm going to win. And I'm going to win because of Tom Brady more likely than not. So guys wanted to go to New England, not because of Belichick, not because of the Patriot way, because of Tom Brady. So, yeah, I wasn't looking to, be specific with how many chips was, won by Kobe or Shaq. I just wanted to highlight the fact that Kobe and Shaq had this partnership and everybody debated on who was more important to the success of the dynasty in LA. And when they split, both ended up winning championships, without the other. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, the TB12 troll of LTN will never retire. Facts. Even though you've faked your retirement at least 2 times. At least 2 times. But I haven't fallen for it. Not once. Shauna Gang, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, hey, Lou, who do you think we will get for our OC job? I really think it's going to boil down to Eric Bieniemy. I think that Anthony Lynn is in that discussion. Ken Zampese should not be discounted. And I think do not rule out, even though I don't think he's going to get the job, do not rule out Pat Shurmur. I don't think Thomas Brown is going to end up being our OC. I think it'll be somebody with some sort of offensive coordinator experience, because Ron is on his proverbial coaching deathbed. In order for him to be nursed back to health, he needs a guy with experience. If you're dying and they bring in a doctor with no experience treating what you have, what's ailing you, it's probably not going to help you stay alive. So I think Ron is looking for someone with some sort of experience that could stave off his elimination of being a head coach in this league. So I think it'll be one of those 4 guys that I've mentioned. I think the longest shot of the 4 is Pat Shurmur at this moment. I think it'll be either Eric Bieniemy, Anthony Lynn, or Ken Zampese. Black Al Bundy. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Black Al B writes, check your IG DMs. Comment too long. This is Bundy. That doesn't, that doesn't give me confidence when you put this is Bundy at the end. I mean, Luck could easily do that, but I'll go to IG. It's not a big deal. Because if it's not you, I'm not gonna. It's not like, oh, you got me. So I'll go check right now. It's not a big deal. Let's see what we got. Go to notifications, and I've already told y'all this many times. Stay off of IG with me. If you want to send me a direct message, the best way to do it is Twitter. I have like 19 IG accounts. If you send it to the wrong one, I'm probably not gonna get it. And it looks like you sent it to the wrong one. You sent it to my other one. I could easily go to my other one, and this is why I tell y'all, do not send it to IG because I got like 97 different accounts. This is from my guy, the Black Al B. He writes, Yo, Lou, I caught the stream of the championship games after it ended. Great content as usual, but yo, I'm sending this before I Google the answer, LOL. But I think more should be made of this being the first Super Bowl where both starting quarterbacks are brothers. Of course, the only brothers the media are going to talk about are the Kelce's, LOL. Yes, and I was going to bring it up, and I saw that comment when you sent it to me on Sunday night after that stream, and I was going to talk about it. I think I was going to talk about it on Friday's episode, though. But, I mean, you brought it to the forefront today, so we can talk about it today. I'm excited about the fact that a brother's going to win the Super Bowl this year, no matter what. Mahomes has already won one, and I think sometimes people forget that he is actually a brother. It's easy to forget that because he's mixed. But once you're a brother, you're a brother. Once we claim you, you've been claimed. All right. So, and we saw his dad, Pat Sr., up there acting a damn fool. I love it. After he won the AFC Championship game on Sunday. And yes, 2 brothers going at it, man. You can't lose in this situation. And I've said this a million times. If Jalen Hurts played for any other team in the league, not named Dallas, Philadelphia, or New York, I would be rooting like hell for him. He's such a likable dude. He does it the right way. He's essentially pulled himself up by the bootstraps and he's gotten to where he's gotten to out of the mud. Like, there's not much to dislike about Jalen Hurts other than he plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. That said, you can't lose here if you're rooting for a brother to hoist the Lombardi. I mean, how many have we had do it? Russell Wilson, Doug Williams was the first, obviously. Russell Wilson. Has there been another? Patrick Mahomes, obviously. Has there been anybody else other than those 3? I feel like I'm missing somebody. Probably obvious in my face, but Donovan went to one, but he never won one. Am I missing anybody? So we could be adding another name to that list. It's a very short list. But I think we could be adding another name to the list. So I'm excited about that for sure. And they're going to make a lot of the Kelce brothers for sure. That's going to be one of the biggest storylines of the Super Bowl. And rightfully so. I think they're 2 likable dudes. This might be Jason Kelce's final game of his career. Remember, he was mulling over retirement before the season. Kelce, a lot of people don't realize because he's so dominant, he's no spring chicken himself. think both of these dudes are on the wrong side of 30 at this point of their career. So this probably means a lot for Travis Kelce because he's playing in the Super Bowl against his brother, and it may be the last time he gets this opportunity. So that they'll make a big deal of that storyline, as well as Andy Reid and him playing against his former team and all of that good stuff. But yeah, that can't be understated, and I'll make sure I do my part to make sure I bring attention to that. Sure. Matthew, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Matthew writes, should go to the Cardinals and play the first 9 or 10 games for Murray, or San Francisco. Solid Falcons. At 29, he will want a 3-year deal. Teams need a 2. Those are all good options for those teams if they're interested in Taylor Heineke. The question is, are they interested in Taylor Heineke? The Cardinals aren't averse to taking on Washington's table scraps. They had Colt McCoy the last 2 seasons, rather. So they're not adverse to taking on, Washington retreads, but it'll be interesting to see. San Francisco doesn't need Heineke. I mean, they can just draft another quarterback if they need to, and you'll have Purdy back at some point, but you got Trey Lance. So draft another dude, because even if you're keeping one of those 2 guys, you're still going to trade one. So you're going to need another young quarterback anyway. So if I'm San Francisco, Garoppolo will be gone. And probably in the next year or 2, one of those other 2 quarterbacks will be gone, whether it's Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. So just draft another quarterback. We'll see what Heineke ends up doing and where he ends up going. Maybe it won't be back in Washington. Matthew, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Baltimore, Atlanta, Arizona, Seattle, taking a quarterback in the draft. I don't know. Baltimore, there's a big question mark, because are they blowing smoke with Lamar? Are they really trying to keep him, or are they looking to trade him and move him and draft Anthony Richardson? I don't know. We'll see. If they re-up on Lamar, then no, they're not in the quarterback market. Atlanta definitely should be looking for a signal caller. Maybe they go the veteran route. Maybe they go the young quarterback route. We'll see. There'll be some options available in this draft not going in the first round, like Hendon Hooker. Will be very intriguing. He said he'll be ready by training camp. He'll be very intriguing. He could be the Jalen Hurts of this draft. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to necessarily get your guy in the first round. Arizona, I don't think they'll be looking for a high-level quarterback. That doesn't mean they won't be looking for a young quarterback, to back up Kyler Murray, but they've invested in Murray. So I think it's going to be Kyler Murray. Seattle, they want Geno Smith back. So I don't think they'll be necessarily looking for anything early. Doesn't mean that they won't be looking for a quarterback at all. Again, a young guy behind Geno Smith won't hurt if they were to bring him back. So those are all interesting teams that could be looking for a quarterback. I don't think any of them stands for Baltimore, which is very intriguing. I don't think any of them will be looking for a quarterback early. Atlanta, if something were to fall into their lap, they may do it. Absolutely. But Arizona and Seattle in particular, I don't think will be looking for quarterbacks. Not early, at least. That's for sure. Alan Nudis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, hi, Louie. Thanks for great content. Appreciate you for watching and participating. Do you expect Payne to go for a second bite of the apple like Sheriff? Look, we've put him in control of his future. We've put him in a position where he can say, no, I don't want a long-term deal from you. They'll slap the franchise tag on him. He can play under the tag. That they could try to get a long-term deal done. He can say, no, I'm good. I'm going to just try to see what's out there for me in free agency. And if y'all want to match whatever somebody else is putting on the table, I don't mind re-signing with y'all, but I want to maximize my value. This is why you don't want to let guys get to free agency, because the closer they get, the less sense it makes. Unless they are dedicated to your program and they feel like the money that you offer them is market value for their services, and they want to stay where they are. You let a guy get close to free agency, and they have things to mull over. And one of the decisions that they have to make is, do I want to stay with this team and make good money, or do I want to leave this team and potentially make ridiculous money? And they've put Deron Payne in that position where, and I don't blame them. Again, hindsight is 2020, but I don't blame them. I didn't think they should have extended him yet anyway. So I would have probably been in the same position with him, because it's cool to have a guy that is healthy, which Deron Payne is one of the most durable defensive tackles in football. It's great to have a guy that stops the run and is disruptive up front. But in order to get paid the big bucks in this league, you got to get to the quarterback, man. It ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You want to be among the elite. You want to be talked about in the same vein and breath with Chris Jones and Aaron Donald and, Jeffrey Simmons and guys like that. You got to get to the quarterback, man. And he did that this year. So now I'm like, I'm all in. Sign me up. Might be too late, though. Anyway, I digress. All right, let's get to the final segment of the show in garbage time. And I literally was going to talk about the Super Bowl, but we got so much time to do that. So what I think I'll do is I'll just use this use this garbage time to take a couple of hashtags on the way out the door. HHC Lunar writes, I think JJ Watt is going to be a commentator for someone, like a studio guy. I can see that. He's going to be around football. I can't see him being away from the game of football. He loves it too much. It's ingrained in his DNA, and I think he would make a fantastic analyst for someone's studio show. I don't think he's going to be a play-by-play guy, but I could see him being, in somebody's studio pregame for sure. HHC Lunar writes, the real loser here is Greg Olsen. I feel so bad for him. I like Greg Olsen a lot. I was not happy with the job he nor his counterpart in the booth did. I'm trying to think of the guy that was calling the game with him. I can see his face. I can hear his voice. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. I thought they were horrible in the NFC Championship game, though. My goodness, I thought they were bad. And I really like both of them, and I thought they did a fantastic job this year as the one in the booth. But I was not pleased with what we got from them in the NFC Championship game. So if they're being replaced, if Brady's going to go straight to the number one in the booth, I want to see what it looks like. HHC Lunar writes, everyone's saying now the Broncos are Super Bowl contenders. I guess we all just forgot about 2022 Russ happened. Coaching matters. We've already talked about this. Russ didn't forget how to play football. So I think people are just saying, we're going to scratch 2022 from the memory bank and act like it didn't happen because Nathaniel Hackett was a hack. All right. He was an absolute tool. So we're going to act as if that didn't happen. And we're going to act like the Broncos just traded for Russell Wilson all over again. And now they have Sean Payton, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to write 2022 from my memory bank, but I am going into it with this sense of, hey, they could be what I thought they could have been last year. I could see that happening. I could see why people would feel that way. HHC Lunar says, Hackett was bad, but I don't think Prime Russ is coming back just because he is gone. I don't think you're wrong. I think Russ can't run the way that he used to. He can't move. So Prime Russ clearly isn't coming back, because Prime Russ, I think one of the pillars of what made him Russell Wilson was his ability to elude, escape, and extend. And he just isn't doing that anymore. So I don't think he's coming back either, but he doesn't have to be Prime Russ in order for I just told you, they just need to be a middle of the pack NFL offense with that defense. If that defense continues to play the way that they did last year and the year before that and the year before that and the year before that, they're going to be right in the mix. Red Wings says, I was barely a year old when Brady got drafted. Now I'm going on 24 and finishing up college. My dad told me stories about Montana, Marino, and Elway, and I'll get to tell my kids about Brady. Facts. That's how that works. Big facts. Let's see. Syndico, or as I like to say, Syndico. Syndico writes, has the modern formula for winning in the NFL become offensive-minded coach, QB that can run his system with a solid defense? There's definitely a shortage of top offensive minds. That is to me, that is the most efficient model, right? Where you take an offensive mind, marry him with a young quarterback, and have them grow together for the next, 15, 20 years. That's what you would ideally like. Andy Reid was far from young when he got the job in Kansas City, but he doesn't have to retire if he doesn't want to. They married him with Patrick Mahomes, and look what has happened. Mahomes may go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Brees was, an afterthought in San Diego when he got injured. They had already, decided on his fate. They had already drafted Phillip Rivers, and then Brees started playing really well, but people weren't sure when he injured his elbow, and he goes to New Orleans, and you see what happens with Sean Payton. You put those two together, and you see the music that they were able to make. That's what teams are after. When you saw Sean McVay go to LA and revitalize Jared Goff's career after one season, people were calling Jared Goff a bust. McVay goes in there, cleans him up, shines him up, and they make it to the Super Bowl. Everyone's looking for an offensive guy that can take a young quarterback and get the most out of him. And that's why it's a lot tougher to hire a defensive-minded guy with a young quarterback, because if that offensive coordinator is really good, guess what? He's going to get a job. And now you're stuck with having to find a adequate replacement for him. And it's not going to be the same. Our best example of that, the most recent, is Buffalo. Sean McDermott's a defensive-minded guy. They had the perfect setup with Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator. They were this close to the Super Bowl twice, right? And then Daboll gets the job because he's incredible. He goes to New York, turns Daniel Jones around. So you see the impact that Daboll has. They promote from within, and they promote the quarterback's coach. And he does not a terrible job. I mean, he's getting a really bad rap, and he wasn't good in the playoffs and hadn't been, what they expected from him, because they thought the transition was going to be seamless. But it's not Brian Daboll. He's not Brian Daboll. And they took a step back this year. And so when you don't have that young head coach, that offensive-minded head coach, you run the risk of losing that offensive coordinator that might be the best pairing for your quarterback. And that's tough. So, yeah, I do think that's the modern formula. Offensive-minded head coach, young quarterback, or just quarterback in general that can run his scheme, quality defense, you can win a Super Bowl. Absolutely. Syndico writes, I think that we might be in the era of the Super Bowl team now. Every other year, we are getting the best players to take team-friendly deals to win a chip. What's the biggest attraction, though? To me, you're seeing the parity in the NFC. That was going to be one of my topics today, but then, all the stuff happened with Brady and the coaches getting hired. That was the topic of the day, and I'll just push it to Friday. But I was going to come up here and I was going to talk about, because I was watching a couple of my old podcasts. I was chopping them up and uploading them to Libsyn and all that stuff. And I was listening to a couple of them while I was chopping it up. And I all year long, even before the season started, I talked about the parity that could exist. And the trade deadline was, to me, the biggest proof that teams thought they could win the Super Bowl this year. We had an NBA, MLB-esque trade deadline this year with players flying all over the place. So much so, excuse me, so much so that we forgot, most of us forgot, not all of you, because some of you reminded me, most of us forgot that the Jacksonville Jaguars traded for Calvin Ridley at the trade deadline. So much action happened. Normally, in a season where the trade deadline is as insignificant as it gets, we would have been thinking, well, that would have been the biggest trade. But we saw teams going for it because they saw an opportunity this year that hasn't existed in the last 15 to 20 years. And yet we still ended up with the 2 number 1 seeds getting to the Super Bowl. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to get out of here now. I don't think I have any more supers that I need to get to. And so I think we can get out of here now. Luck, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Can I put OxyClean in my dog's bath or no? I'm not sure. And I don't have any pets, so I don't want to tell you to not do that, but I wouldn't advise you to do that. But anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 314th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Man, I love my kids, but the thing I hate the most about having little ones is they get you sick, man. Damn, I don't get sick on my own. I only get sick because of them. They got my ass again. Now I'm over here fighting. You hear me coughing, sniffling and shit. I don't do these types of things. I'm going to try to get myself right, though. I'll see you guys next time. Appreciate y'all for joining me as always. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. Until next time, God bless and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.